But how can you keep the peace in your house when it's a mess? You haven't done the laundry in 2 weeks and you can't even go to the restroom with the door closed. I'm hoping our first guest has some answers. Please welcome Dr. Marti Erickson to the show. Dr. Erickson is with the University of Minnesota, and you've got so many titles. Let people know exactly who you are and what you do there.
Well, I'm a developmental psychologist by background, and I currently am director of what's called the Harris Programs in the Center for Early Education and Development. And that's a program that provides training to professionals who work with kids and families, provides information to general audiences about good research on what really matters for kids and what helps moms and dads be the best they can be.
Now, I'm just going to cut to the chase because I'm like the little old lady in the shoe, but I only have one child and I do not know what to do. Are you hearing that sentiment from other moms?
Oh, I think being a parent and certainly being a mom is the hardest job in the world, and I hear that all the time. In fact, as you know, Sheletta, my daughter and I do a weekly radio show called Good Enough Moms, and we chose that name for a good reason because I think we often, as mothers, set such high expectations for ourselves, and we let society really put a lot of pressure on us, and so that just makes the job all the harder. It's hard enough anyway, just raising a child and getting through the day as you described, but when you have those other pressures, it really can be overwhelming.
Now, you did some extensive research. Tell us about that. What were some of your findings?
Yes, and I've had kind of two major areas of research in recent years, and one is real direct research with mothers and babies, focusing on how the mother-infant attachment develops and how and why that's so important for kids' ongoing development. But in the past year or two, I've also been doing some survey research on more than 2,000 mothers from all across the country, mothers from all ethnic backgrounds, all socioeconomic backgrounds, geographic regions, and we really asked them a lot of questions about their lives as mothers, what satisfies them, what's really hard for them, how they feel about employment and trying to balance work and family, and all sorts of things about their lives, and that was really, really rich research.
Now, what was the most startling piece of information that you got from that? What stood out in your mind more than anything that you got from the results?
You know, there were two things that really came through to me and that kind of surprised me. One was that mothers, by and large, are really quite satisfied with their with the fact that they are mothers. They're quite satisfied with their lives as mothers, even though they're not necessarily satisfied with all the little details and the appreciation they get and that sort of thing. But they talked with great passion about just what an amazing experience it is to be a mother. But the other area of research that really came through, the other area of mothers' lives that came through as being so important and a bit surprising to me, had to do with their attitudes about employment. And in particular, we found that only about 36% of all of these mothers are working to the extent that they want to outside the home. So about 36% are kind of finding the match in terms of whether they want to work full-time, part-time, work from home. And by and large, mothers would much prefer to be working part-time rather than full-time. And many of them would love to be working at home if they could create an opportunity to do so.
I know that was a challenge for me. I planned to come back to work full-time after my son was born. I looked down at his little face in the bassinet and thought, I'm never going back to work again. Yeah. But there's no way for us to maintain our household. We need that extra income. So I decided to work part-time, but still I'm torn because I don't feel like I'm fulfilled in my profession because I want to come back full-time, but the opportunity is only there for part-time right now, and then I get to spend that time with the baby, but still I'm not, doing what I want to do in my field on a full-time basis. Are mothers struggling with that, or is it just me?
Oh, mothers are struggling with that indeed, and I think partly because they really don't feel that they have the opportunities to succeed the way they would like to unless they're working full-time. And yet, just as you described, they are so pulled to be home with their kids more. And one of the things that was so interesting to me in our findings about employment was that mothers who are home full-time, more than half of those mothers would prefer to be employed, but only if they could be employed part-time, with flexible schedules or working for pay from home. So whether mothers are working full-time or whether they're home full-time, the desire of the vast majority of mothers is to find that balance that allows them to have a meaningful job, but not full-time and not so rigidly scheduled that they can't really be responsive to their kids' needs. And it's not just because they think it's better for their kids for them to be there. This is what the mothers want. They talk about that pull, just looking at that child and thinking, I want to be in that child's life.
Do you think employers are changing these days? I know when my mother was working, she had a difficult time getting time off. Is it changing? Is the workplace changing?
The smart employers are changing, and that's because there's a whole other body of research that shows that it's in the best interests of the workplace to accommodate working mothers. Looking at the demographics of our country, we are facing a serious shortage of workers coming up in the next few years, especially as the baby boomers really start to retire. And we have this whole pool of wonderful potential workers who are moms. And smart workers, smart employers are figuring out how to accommodate those workers and really help people find balance. Also, when people feel balanced in their personal lives and when they're feeling okay about how their kids are doing and what they're doing as moms and dads, they do better on their job. So there's a real crossover benefit, and we just have to get more employers to really understand that and act accordingly.
Now, we were talking to some of the mothers who are coming on the show later who are in the lobby, and we were talking about support. Finding somebody that you can talk to who's going through what you're going through. I know a lot of times I feel alone. I'm chasing the UPS man down the street trying to find any adult to talk to during the day and validate my existence on the earth right now. Talk to me about moms and support.
Support is really the key to being a good enough mom and therefore to raising good enough kids. And that's just as straightforward as I can be. It's hugely important. You know, you just cannot do this kind of intimate, challenging, kind of emotional roller coaster work unless you really have good support for yourself. Sometimes that comes from your spouse. I hope that it does. Sometimes it comes from your own mother or other extended family members. But wherever it comes from, circle of friends, going to the coffee shop and getting to know the regulars who hang out there.
Right.
Lots of moms are doing that these days. It's just really important to build that support. And certainly when you go through particularly stressful times, if you're dealing with illness or a loss or some kind of a major challenge in your life, that's when support really is the thing that makes it or breaks it.
Now, before you go, folks are listening to you. You're making a lot of sense. You're shedding light on this situation called motherhood that we're all struggling to try to get through successfully. Tell people where they can hear you and your daughter on your weekly radio show.
Well, we're on FM 107, WFMP radio in the Twin Cities, and also on the internet, FM 107. .fm. I have to stop and think about that.
But you want to say .com.
Yeah, I do. And we're on every Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. And I host this show, Good Enough Moms, with my daughter, Marti Erickson Garner, who is a mother of 2 little kids, a little girl who's almost 3, and a little boy who just had his first birthday. And we don't give a lot of advice, but we really engage our listeners in talking with us about all the issues that we face as mothers. So it's a lot of fun, and we would love to have people tune in and call in.
Dr. Marti Erickson, thank you so much for being with us today on Crossroads.
Well, thank you.